Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptomancer, where we feature content on play-to-earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, as we kind of approach the Chaos Legion General Sale, I want to talk about an interesting topic that I've been thinking about when it comes to play-to-earn gaming, and specifically Splinterlands, and that is the question of, will I somehow in the future be able to retire by playing a video game? And while many in the space of play-to-earn games, and certainly outside the space of play-to-earn games, would kind of laugh at that question and the potential answers there, I actually want to talk a little bit more about that, go through some of the math again, and really discuss, is it really a possibility that many of us could potentially retire from playing a game like Splinterlands? Now, I don't know about you, but probably ever since I was little, I would look at people that own land and houses and buildings and see how they were able to manage that and be wealthy. That was always appealing to me. But then as I looked at it, as I grew up and I saw all the challenges with managing properties, maintaining properties, managing tenants and bill collecting and all that, it seemed really maybe not worth the hassle versus all the equity and the blood, sweat, and tears it would take to manage something like that. Now, granted, a lot of people do extremely well with rentals for properties and real estate and all that, which is great. It just wasn't my cup of tea for a variety of reasons, like I just mentioned. But now with the play-to-earn era of gaming, we actually have options to be essentially digital landlords or digital real estate investors, and we can do so without having to maintain toilets or faulty pipes or any of that stuff, having to deal with repainting walls and maintenance calls at 2 in the morning. So it's really an interesting topic, and I want to kind of go into some of the math and some of where we can actually see some of this starting to be reality today. For me personally, within Splinterlands, I put probably a significant investment for myself into this game, and I have accumulated about 300,000 collection power. And that's certainly, I would say, for me, a big investment, but for others in the game, it's probably quite small. But at 300,000 collection power, what I've been able to consistently do every season end is rent out my cards at the end of the season for a decent amount of DEC. Now, that has been consistently above 4,000 DEC every season, and that may not seem like much. If we look at the price of DEC, DEC is 0.0039. So if we look at the math, and let's say things continue to work as they have for the last several months, if I can rent out 4,000 collection power at, let's say, a rate of 0.0039, every 2 weeks, it's under $16. It's like $15.60. And if we do the math, if the cycle for the season is essentially every 2 weeks, there's 52 weeks in a year. That means I can do this 26 times a year. I can basically make $405.60 roughly if everything remained the same, renting every 2 weeks, just one day a season. So that doesn't seem like a lot. Like, no one's going to retire on an island for $405.60, probably no matter where you live in the world. But let's look at this from a slightly different angle. So what would happen if, for example, my rental income were to increase by a factor of 100, which is quite a bit, right? So if I were to, instead of renting for $405 a year, let's say the values of my rentals went up 100x. That would mean I would be able to get roughly $40,560 a year from just renting basically one day a week, every 2 weeks during the year. The rest of the time, being retired and enjoying my life. Is $40,560 enough to retire? Well, for some people, I think you could say, yes, that could be a doable retirement income, like a pension, but a digital asset pension. But you're probably thinking, well, there's no way assets in Splinterlands are going to 100x. But let's really look at this and see what that would mean to do 100x on current assets. So we're here in Peak Monsters, and I've just filtered here on Chaos Legion common cards. And a Chaos Legion common cards right now are 5.5 cents. The Hardy Stonefish, probably the worst card in the game. 5.5 cents, right? He's the Rodney Dangerfield of Splinterlands cards. So if this were to 100x, like if I were to basically sell Hardy Stonefishes, not let's say rent out, but let's just say sell, right? Which I know is not exact equivalent, but the value of this card would have to be $5.50 for a common card in our current assets that we could pick up today. And you're saying, well, there's no way the Hardy Stonefish will ever be worth $5.50. Well, let's kind of look and see what we have historically to work with. For example, if we look at untamed commons, the lowest untamed common is 26.5 cents roughly. And that just came out maybe a year ago. If we look at beta cards, probably the lowest beta card is, let's say, 54 cents, with certainly quite a few in the $2 to $5 range here. Actually, quite a few, right? So already, beta cards being, let's say, 2 years old, we're seeing common cards selling for $5. And we look at alpha cards, right? Alpha cards are 3 years old, roughly. And here, the floor price is roughly $4.30. So we can see here that valuations of cards can definitely do 100x, right? The Hardy Stonefish being the latest common, being 5.5 cents, and alpha commons being the oldest commons, being roughly $4.29. So it's not apples to apples, right? It's not 100x exactly, but it's certainly in the right magnitude of where we're looking at valuations. And you're probably going, okay, well, the difference between a card selling for 5 cents and a card renting for 5 cents and then 100xing that is not equivalent. But I would also say that if you look at what I'm renting, I'm not renting Hardy Stonefishes. I'm renting collection power and I'm renting meta cards. And when I'm renting for 4,000 DEC per season, I'm technically really only for myself, only renting any card with 100 CP or higher. So I'm not renting any commons or rares really, unless they're of the older editions. And I'm just basically doing bulk CP listings very quickly, like in minutes, and I'm done renting. So really what I'm renting is more the high-end parts of my collection where most of my collection is sitting idle. So let's maybe do more of an apples to apples comparison. Now I'm in the card rental market, and I've got here filtered on legendary Chaos Legion cards. And let's use this as an example because usually from a rental perspective, we're going to rent at the high end for rentals and not the low end of our collection. So in this case, if we take Queen Mycelia out of here as an outlier, let's say the majority of legendaries are, let's say, renting for 0.0079 cents a day. So let's see, 0.0079 is kind of where we're at. Let's look at alpha legendaries in comparison. And alpha legendaries are 0.066, roughly 0.049, 0.047. Okay, so it's maybe roughly a factor of 10x, right? So times 10, 7.9 cents, we're at 6.6 cents, so roughly a factor there. If we look at untamed legendaries, we take out the outliers of, let's say, Jotun and Scarred Llama Mage, we're at 12 cents, Kitty's at 7.5 cents, then you got 4 or 5 cents. So roughly, let's just say from a magnitude perspective, we're at a 10x in the rental markets from the current release versus older releases for legendary cards. And again, you might say, well, really, there's no way you could think about retiring because we're not talking about 100x multipliers on rentals. You're only looking at a 10x. And I would say mathematically, yeah, you're right. That's probably what we're looking at from a rental market. Take the sales market out of the equation because once you sell a card, you don't have it anymore. You basically liquidated your asset. You can't reuse it. So rentals aren't going to give you as much, let's say, income or profit versus a sale. Same thing with land. When you sell land, you're going to make more money than someone paying monthly rent to you. It just makes sense because you're reusing that asset in a rental capacity. But here's what I would say. If we can agree that we can get a magnitude of 10x here on the cards in the future, right? For Chaos Legion, let's say a year or two from now, Chaos Legion legendaries are renting for 7 cents versus 0.007 cents. Now we're starting to cook with gas. And here's why I say that. Because if you look at for example, in my example, the collection power that I've achieved where I can rent for 4,000 DEC per season, I haven't put in a ton of money from my investment or retirement perspective. Like, I would say it's very easy to probably calculate that most people's investment in the game, they probably have 10x, maybe more, in other retirement assets rather than Splinterlands. And if you've gone the other way, then maybe that could be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. But that being said, if we were to, let's say, increase over the coming years our assets and investments in Splinterlands 10x, now all of a sudden the retirement equation becomes possible, because rentals go from 10 times, but I have 10 times as many assets. And now, we're starting to really see the ability to earn money. Because again, in what Splinterlands is, it's not necessarily play to earn, but it's more pay to earn, similar with all investments, in that the more money you put in, the likely chance of the more money you would get out from a successful investment. So all I would say here is, if we do the math and we look at the abilities here, certainly card values would not be unheard of to 100x. We've already seen that in alphas versus Chaos Legions, as we've seen earlier in this video. The rental market, certainly a 10x is feasible for our high-end assets to rent in the game, from Chaos Legion to other versions like Untamed or alphas. So a 10x is certainly possible. And then if we increased our investments into a game like Splinterlands and put it on par with maybe creating your own business and how much money that would take, maybe if we put that money instead of a franchise or a 401k, you could potentially see retirement level earning opportunities in the future. Now, that being said, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. Do your own research. This is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's basically just to illustrate that while many people may laugh at play-to-earn games as a vehicle or mechanism to potentially retire in the future, it is mathematically plausible that that could be a reality in the future. Now, that being said, there's a lot of changes just ahead in the next 6 months for Splinterlands that could throw all of this calculation out of whack. The ability to earn SPS in ranked battle rewards has a factor in near-term earnings. The ability of us earning in both a modern league and a wild format also has game economic impacts. And of course, the end of the SPS airdrop in just probably 6 months or so also has drastic impacts on the economy, the game, and the valuation and everything around that. And perhaps the biggest factor in this equation is the introduction of land and the ability for players, not Splinterlands themselves, but players, to be able to use assets in the game, namely land assets, to be able to mint NFTs and either rent them, sell them, etc. So that adds a whole another factor of being technically a digital landlord into Splinterlands that is really, at this point, unfathomable on what that could possibly do to earnings potential and the overall game economy. So there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of possibility also that comes with that uncertainty. And what we've seen from the Splinterlands development team is a track record to continue to add value to stakeholders and investors within the, quote, Splinterlands ecosystem. So it's not unheard of. It's something to think about. I would be curious to hear your thoughts on this topic. Is Splinterlands a possible source of retirement income for you in the future? Is it possible that one day, instead of working a traditional office or corporate job, our kids or our grandkids could actually be at home playing video games for a living in the metaverse? Is this a possibility? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this video has been insightful or entertaining for you, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for more timely content on Splinterlands and other play-to-earn games. And until next time, keep stacking those stats.